everyone, and welcome to the penultimate round of Who Reviews the Reviewers Season 4. It's round 7. I'm Captain Logan. We're down to the top 3, and what we asked our guys to do this time is to review something together. This is the co-op challenge round. We haven't done this since Season 1. What we do is we ask all the contestants to get together in a Skype call or Google Plus call and to do an off-the-cuff review discussion all together, but still make it a review, even though they have to collaborate together and they're not able to script the thing. So what they chose was the documentary Showrunners. That's all about people who run TV shows. It's on Netflix right now if you want to watch it before you watch their review. I have taken their live show. They actually did this as a live show on a Google Hangout. I've actually taken their live show and I've not edited, I've not cut it up at all. I'm going to put it here in its entirety, glitches and all, just fair warning, there are a couple of little technical difficulties here and there. And anyway, I put all that. I've just taken the entire video, put it straight in this video, and then afterwards there are, just as we do each round, interviews from each of them talking about their experiences with this round. In 2 days we'll have the deliberations, and then next week the live Season 4 finale. Right now we're shooting for Wednesday night. That is tentative, but we'll let you know if it changes and exactly what time that's going to be at, probably 7 or 8 Central, but we will let you know when we get a little bit closer to time. And without further ado, here is the round 7 video.
Hello, I am Connor Nielsen.
I'm not
and joining me is...
I'm Mr. Goodplot, and I'm not sure if this is officially it. Is it?
Yeah, it is. And we're off to a great start.
Oh, boy.
That's the start. So we have all seen Showrunners, documentary about people who run television shows. It is on Netflix if you guys want to watch it, or if you want to pause, watch it, and then come back, or if you've already seen it, that works also.
And if you're watching this live, then that means you pause the whole thing, and it's probably done by the time you come back.
I had not thought of that. That's a good point. So real quick, I guess we're gonna go around, say if we liked it, say our favorite thing and our least favorite thing, and then get started, right?
Yep.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
Guess I'll go first.
Go for it.
I didn't really care for this documentary very much, but my favorite thing about the movie was I liked kind of seeing this unseen world that's kind of becoming more and more prominent, that of the showrunner, kind of like the director of TV shows. My least favorite part about this movie was a bit twofold. I really didn't care much for the editing, and I really thought it got repetitive because of the editing. And that's kind of my general first impressions. Who wants to go next?
I guess I'll go next. Okay, my favorite thing was that it covered a lot of ground, in this industry, show running in general. I thought that they did a really good job at, covering all the kinds of things. There were times during the movie where I kept wondering, are they going to talk about this? Are they going to talk about that eventually? And they do. Just about everything that I thought of when it came to show running, they eventually did tackle, like the idea of one person, show running more than one show at a time, like Joss Whedon, or the fact that only really 1/8 of the interviewees were women, and they eventually did tackle that too. So that's what I liked about it. The thing that I did not like was, even though they covered a lot of ground in regards to show running in general, I feel like they didn't cover shows, enough shows to run. Like, it felt like they focused on prime time type shows. Like they didn't mention like what it's like to be a kids showrunner or a reality showrunner or an animated showrunner. And I think that because the title of the movie is Showrunner, I feel like they shouldn't be like too specific with that. I think would have at least been would have sufficed for that would be at least having one from each of those, like at least representing them. Like having at least one kid showrunner and one reality showrunner, just to give a little bit taste just so it could feel a little bit more complete.
Yeah. I'll start by saying I did enjoy this film. I thought it was overall very solid. My favorite thing about it was, I mean, pretty much as you guys have said, it's this doorway to this unseen world of these showrunners. And I love the way that we really kind of learn about what they do and how much it kind of dives into that whole thing. But my negative is actually the same as Connor's in that it does get really repetitive, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of. We saw so much of the writing. I would have loved to have seen more of what a showrunner does on set. I would have loved to have seen more of that side of things, because we do tend to focus on these same sorts of, we're in the writing room and we're all kind of talking about the show, as opposed to, I would have liked to have gotten a little bit more into the nitty-gritty.
All right. I guess one of another issue I know I had with it, I don't want to be all negative on it, but I feel like it felt like a featurette on a DVD rather than like an actual documentary, and I feel that's because it lacked a sense of narrative. I know because it's a documentary, it's not fictional narrative, but take, for example, Super Size Me. The narrative is 1 month on McDonald's, and this one was just show running, and I feel like there was a sense of starting with that, with at the beginning of the day, here's how many days till, how many weeks till production's over, but they didn't really go anywhere. There was just sort of like arbitrary time frames that were given. I would have maybe liked to have seen these crews follow these showrunners around as they try to develop these new shows, and what if they were all new shows that we were seeing, or a little blend of new and continuing shows. So I felt like it had a lack of narrative, and the only thing I really got out of this was show running's hard, and I don't feel like we saw enough of the reward of successful show running. I mean, we got a sense of that with J.J. Abrams and Joss Whedon, but that was kind of more of like, I remember the good old days of show running. So.
I'll fight you on that a little bit. I
Me too.
While I agree it lacks a narrative as strong as a lot of other documentaries, I think that with Matthew Carnahan and the House of Lies, you do have something of a narrative with him, because we have this guy who's talking about, I'm starting this new show based off this book I read, and then at the end of the documentary, we get to see him kind of reacting to the premiere of that show and how it goes over for him. So while I agree with you that the narrative is not strong, I do think we have something of a narrative with Matthew Carnahan, and I think it works enough to carry us through the film.
And I also thought that there was also a narrative with another show they were covering, which was Men of a Certain Age. Like, I thought that the center of this film was like a trinity of Bones, Men of a Certain Age, and, as you said, House of Lies. And like, we were chronicalizing those three throughout, like, and they each like represent a different state of shows. Like, Bones was a show that was on for a while before before this documentary, and it continues on. And House of Lies was a show that had a promising future when it was made, and it's continuing. And Men of a Certain Age is that show that's kind of the tragedy of the documentary. Like, that's the one that goes close, that's edges closer and closer to cancellation throughout the movie. Like, as the movie progresses, that show becomes closer to cancellation, to the point of the end of the movie, or near the end of the movie, where we find out, it's been canceled. Even though when they started, it was like, it was going strong, yay, Ray Milano, so happy, and now it's done. And the showrunner has to move on, but he's happy about that. He's accepted that, moving on. So I thought that was also the narrative of the movie. Like, it was a trinity of the three.
Okay, I guess okay. To an extent, I feel you guys are onto something. But I think that those narratives do get a little hurt by very repetitive interviews. I feel like those kind of narratives are kind of chopped up, and we don't have enough. When we get back to them, we have to remember where they were, and then in the middle of that, we get a lot of these interviews where I feel like we're interviewing Janet Tomorrow, Tamaro, whatever she. And then we get to J.J. Abrams, and then we get to the people who did The Good Wife, and they were just kind of like saying the same things. And then we get to the next guy, and they say the same thing. And then when they get to the next person, they say the same thing. And then we get back to a certain age, and it's like, oh yeah, but you kind of lost your sense of caring about it, I feel.
I agree with that a little bit because we do have these sort of title slates that come up and say like, we're on the next section of the documentary, we're on the showrunner as a producer side of things, and I agree that I don't think there is quite enough of a differentiation in like the questions asked between these different segments. So I agree with you on there that there is a lot of repetition in what these people are being asked, and that is definitely an issue when you're trying to present this documentary as here's one aspect of showrunning, here's another aspect of showrunning, here's another aspect of showrunning, but at the end of the day, we're all kind of covering the same aspect almost, but differently worded, kind of, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I kind of got that too. There were a lot of times where, I felt that a lot of the movie was like reiteration of the same phrase. This is the hardest job ever, but I love it. It's like you basically heard that several times throughout the movie.
Yeah. And Janet Tamara was it was and like you said, Steve, it was interesting that you're watching and then you are wondering about these things like women as showrunners, and then we bring up Janet Tamara and we get her perspective, but at the end of the day it's still the same sorts of questions and answers that we're getting from the male showrunners.
Yeah, it's true.
And if I would, I want to talk about her. I guess she's a showrunner, but she struck me as very uncomfortable on screen. And as a viewer, she was very, very shaky, and I was kind of like, she was very shaky in her voice. So that was one of those elements where it was like, anytime she came on, I didn't know what, like, I was like, kind of uncomfortable watching somebody be uncomfortable on screen.
Yeah. And she was really interesting because of her background in news, and then taking what she saw in news and basically fictionalizing it. And I thought that was one of the most interesting ideas in the film. I thought that was one of the most interesting interviews in the film, and the way she sort of breaks down a little bit when she talks about her friend. So while I agree that there was a certain level of like shakiness to her presence, I actually would have liked to have seen a little bit more of her in this film.
And also, I felt like that kind of makes her relatable in that way because I'm shaky as all, also. So I just felt like that was kind of relatable.
Okay.
Steve, I like what you said about not having enough representation of different kind of showrunners.
Mm-hmm.
We had Bill Prady in there almost as a token sitcom showrunner.
Yeah, Yeah, I kind of noticed that too. I think that was like the only sitcom that was on there was The Big Bang Theory,
Mm-hmm.
which is ironic since geeks are bred to hate that show.
Yeah, it's really divisive.
What about the person who did Everybody Hates Chris? He kind of had the African American perspective, but again, it was also just showrunning's the hardest job ever, but it's the best job ever. But he was also a sitcom showrunner, correct?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah, I mean he's not in it much. He is asked a few questions and that's about it. He's not in it nearly as much as a lot of the other people who are being interviewed.
Well, I mean, there were, to be fair, there were a few, throughout the documentary that we only saw like once or twice.
Yeah.
Attention, founders residents. Come to the second floor lounge for free pizza and information about Feed My Starving Children.
I also think we didn't see a ton of like the negative side of the industry. We have interviews with Joss Whedon, but we don't talk about how he feels about having, both Dollhouse and Firefly canceled one season in.
Yeah. Uh, I also like kind of jumping off of that. I feel like they're painting the studios as the antagonist of the piece. Like, oh, our vision. We always gotta deal with those studio people, and they're always uh, giving us notes that don't make any sense. And to me, I was kind of okay. Come on, the studio people. I think give them more credit because it's really kind of the audience that's going to determine. Everyone just kind of has the best. Everyone has the show in mind, and they all want it to succeed. So I feel like we got the showrunner, but we didn't really get the showrunner as working with the studio or working with the network. It was just kind of like, this is my vision, and I'm fighting for it to get through.
Well, I think there were some interviewees who did, address that. I felt. I think there were a few that actually did address the fact that sometimes it does like rely on how many people are watching it, and like that.
Yeah, we had the I forget his name, the showrunner who was in charge of, I believe it was Spartacus.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how when you're on, like cable as opposed to one of the big networks, you don't make as much money, but you have more freedom. And I actually really liked this, that we bring up this narrative of the network producers are censoring your art, but then we immediately have the interview with Sean Ryan, the showrunner behind The Shield, and he immediately contradicts that and says some artists say there's a huge difference between cable and network, and I just don't see it personally. So I like
That's
that.
probably just.
Hmm?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just like that there's this narrative that a lot of us have that like the executive producers are evil and like the corporate bigwigs are ruining art, but then we have, and Joss Whedon even says this, that it's case by case, and sometimes that's just not true. So I did appreciate that a lot, that we kind of got both sides of that.
Oh, okay. So you were just gonna bring up the point that I was about to say was it's
Oh.
about showing different perspectives. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
Okay, maybe I just didn't get that sense. Okay. Maybe I need to watch it again because this is one of those things where, like, halfway through the movie, I kind of got bored and I kind of was constantly checking, like, because to me, like, I don't know, I don't want to get all negative on this, but I don't know. I feel like there was also some editing decisions that really bugged me, especially with it would show like lines of like they showed you some words that you were trying to read, but they also had like some when you were trying to listen to, and it was really really quick at the same time. And I was like, I feel like I'm getting lost in this, and it wasn't particularly well edited, especially in that first half.
Yeah. What did you guys think about the discussion of the roles of the actors in shows?
I thought it was weird that we just got one guy basically
Yeah,
as
we
an
had
interviewee.
we had one actor kind of really
Terra
good.
Nova guy,
Perspective.
who I only know from that.
Yeah. Well, we had to talk about how there's this that showrunners were talking about how they want to work with actors, but not actors who have huge egos. I really liked what the guy behind Sons of Anarchy said, where he's like, I don't care how good an actor is, I'm not going to have poison brought onto my set and stuff like that. It's a minor point in the film, but I thought it was interesting.
I did like that. Kurt Sutter is a really interesting personality in the sense that he's the showrunner of Sons of Anarchy, in the sense that like he was talking about, and I thought like his idea was the when he was talking about working with the studios was kind of the best part because he was really kind of talking about how he needs to be reined in a little bit, and when he's writing and show running at the same time, there was a very he had to rein himself in, and he really kind of understood this as a collaborative process.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And a lot of them did seem to understand that there was no one that struck me as overly like too much of a control freak. I didn't think, and it reinforces how many people it takes to make these shows happen.
Mm-hmm. Like they showed the ladder climbing, like all the steps you take up to showrunners.
Yeah.
So you could like use this as sort of an educational, an educational opportunity if you want to ever get into that industry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One more thing
Use
that
it as your only educational tool, of course. But.
the one last thing that really made me feel like it was more of a featurette style video rather than a documentary was the informality of it all. That was distracting me and it kind of took me out. There was kind of like that one moment towards the end where some guys makes a metaphor about your wife being in a coma but you're going on dates, and then it's kind of a funny little metaphor he makes. Of course, with the parallel of your show, you're not sure whether it's going forward and then developing new shows, and he kind of compares it to his wife being in a coma but going on dates with other women. And then he just kind of goes, "Oh, cut that. Never mind. Oh, that was weird." And I was like, well, "No, cut that last part out. Leave that metaphor in." And then there was a part towards the beginning where they're in the writing room of Bones, and then the one guy turns to the camera. He's like, "I'm not sure about spoilers," and the guy goes, "Oh, this movie's gonna come on out after the spoilers." I'm like, edit that stuff out. I mean, let's say this was like a found footage movie that was like being a mockumentary. If that came up, people would go like, in a real documentary that wouldn't happen. So, and now this is an actual documentary where that happened, and I found that very, very distracting, and it did make it feel more like an internet informative video rather than like a cinematic documentary. It had very significant lack of cinematic sensibilities.
Yeah, that happens. They go to visit one of the directors on set, and the guy's like, he looks at the camera crew and he's like, "What is this?" And the guy's like, "It's a documentary film. Please tell me they told you."
You're talking about Angel, aren't you? From Bones. Angel from Bones. That's it.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually a really interesting point that I hadn't really thought about, because it felt a little bit kind of natural to me, because they wanted the audience to kind of feel the getting into this world. Like they wanted them to like really get to know these people as people and kind of get a feel for how they are and get a feel for these showrunners who do these incredible jobs but are everyday people. But no, I think you're right. The one moment where I wouldn't have cut it out was when Tamara started to break down a little bit, and the interviewer off camera is like, if you don't want to go there, and then she's like, no, I want to talk about it. And I thought that actually added to it. I thought that made that scene more. I thought that made that moment more powerful. But overall, I think that is actually a good point.
Yeah, it makes me realize that a lot of these shows, specifically with, especially with men of a certain age, a lot of these shows, we tend to, forget immediately, or we think, oh, there's that show that came and went. But a lot of them are like these big passions for these showrunners. Like these are almost their whole lives for a point, and then all of a sudden it just ends just like that, and they have no say in it. And we don't realize how big of an impact on people those shows have, even if they're barely on and barely anyone talks about them.
Yeah. It did make me want to go out and watch Men of a Certain Age.
Yeah. That looked interesting. Are there
I
any?
remember seeing ads for that. That was funny. Yeah, it's very.
Yeah, I had not heard of that. I hadn't heard of Husbands.
That was like a webisode series, right? Like it was on the web.
I couldn't tell you. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I believe that one was like the only internet show they had on there.
Oh, okay.
Which is why I wanted like representations of reality and kid shows, since they had one for web shows.
No, yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think that's especially considering that we had Bill Prady as our token sitcom guy, but that was it.
A couple others too.
Yeah.
What made you guys really, really like this? What were like some of the biggest positives, like other than it's kind of cool to see this world?
Well, for me, it's kind of a industry piece. It is. I go to school for video production, And this, while it may not be the most well put together thing, it does give you a good sense of where the industry is at as a whole right now. If you talk to any pop culture scholar, any media professor, they will tell you that we are in a second golden age of television right now, and I think now is the perfect time to make this. So it's an excellent it's an excellent piece about where television culture is right now.
Yeah, that's kind of a similar reason for me too, is because this is personally something that I really want to, get into later down the line. So it is cool, like seeing, some tidbits on how it's done. Like, oh, cool, that's how that's done. Oh, cool, this is how I do that. Neat.
Yeah.
Good Plot wants to make a TV show? Oh no!
Oh God. No, Good Plot. No supervillain evil TV shows.
Well, they do say, write what you know about. So
Yeah.
what it means I'm going to write about a man who dresses up and talks to his rabbit, and the rabbit never speaks back.
I
watch that a movie.
I do agree with that point, actually. It does do a good job of kind of like showing you where TV is at right now. I do like the stuff at Comic-Con where they talk about this is what being at Comic-Con's like, and how it's really lifted the veil on the showrunner.
Yeah.
I really like Stephen DeKnight's. He's the guy who does Spartacus. I like Stephen DeKnight's insights onto Comic-Con quite a bit.
Does anyone remember what is it? Damon Lindelof, the guy who does one of the Lost people.
Yeah.
He has a great comment about David Lynch and Twin Peaks that I thought was really fascinating, about how if the internet was around when David Lynch was making Twin Peaks, that would have gone entirely differently. What did you think about that?
As someone who loves Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I know nothing about it, so I thought.
It was interesting. You were gonna say?
I was going to say that was a very interesting thing to say, because I don't know if David Lynch would have just given all the answers, but as Damon Lindelof said, he felt like he had to give answers to keep that audience coming back. So that was a very interesting thing, and maybe if David Lynch had given those answers, Twin Peaks would have lasted longer than 2 seasons, which is interesting. Well, I guess now that there's a revival on Showtime, we will have more Twin Peaks.
Yeah, and I thought it was also great that they...
Which is funny because we are now in that internet age, which brought Twin Peaks back.
Yeah.
That's an interesting circle.
And I also thought it was interesting that we saw the opposite of that coin, the other side, where one of the other showrunners mentioned that if Cheers was on during the Twitter age, everyone would, keep nagging, oh, they should put the 2 leads together, like would basically be the Arrow situation we have right now. Felicity and Arrow should be together.
Can we not talk about Arrow?
It was just an example.
I really enjoyed the first season of that show, mostly because it's a Batman show.
Let's get back on track.
Yes.
I didn't mean to.
No, actually, I'm glad you said that, because correct me if I'm wrong, but was there a single superhero TV show showrunner?
Just one. Just one. They just mentioned in text that Joss Whedon was the showrunner of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I noticed. That was the only one where it was in text, Joss Whedon, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that was it. And I ought to know, since, I keep vigilant about those things.
Yeah. So I guess we kind of brought up occasionally is the thing about the text that appears. That got so annoying. It's like, I get it if you're going to show a new thing, like this is Joss Whedon, Firefly, or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, every time, whenever it kind of shows a new section. But in the same section, it would say, this is Damon Lindelof from Lost. This is Damon Lindelof from Lost. This is Damon Lindelof. I'm like, I know who Kurt Sutter is. I know who Terrence Winters. I know who these people are. Stop telling me, movie. I know.
Yeah, bringing up a lower third of someone's name is standard convention, but you're right, it does it too many times. If I made a documentary for my class, I would have gotten docked for that, probably.
Wow.
It's like maybe if there's a showrunner who just has one show under the belt, then just show that one once. And if you had the ones that did multiple times, then do what they also did, which was have each one show up throughout the documentary. Because I actually liked that. I actually liked that. Oh, the Shield guy is also the Terrier guy. That's interesting. And the failed dragon guy is also the I'm a Cylon guy.
Yeah, I like that element where it's like when they would bring up a new show they had worked on, it would like have a new title by their name, and that would be an exception I would have made. However, they kept showing the same titles, and it was like, okay, cut it out.
We're about to hit the half-hour mark.
Okay, how many more minutes do we have?
We are at 29, so we should probably wrap up.
Okay. Do you guys have any last thoughts in the score you'd give this movie?
I don't really do scores. If I had to give it a score, I would give it 7 out of 10, maybe a 6.
Okay.
6.5.
I'll give my score next. Well, thank you. It wasn't supposed to rip apart. This is live.
See, I found this movie all right as far as an informative video, but as a documentary, I thought it was honestly kind of bad. So I would give it a 4 on an objective documentary score.
Cool.
Well, I guess that's me for Connor.
That Matt Kid here.
This is it for me.
And have a good night.
So sitting down and talking, interacting face-to-face, or, well, virtual face-to-face with two normal civilians rather than supervillains, it was a very different experience. I talked to those two gentlemen a couple times before, so it wasn't too weird in that part, but doing it live for an official review, I'd say it was an experience of knowing when to chime in on something and when to let them talk, because part of the challenge is not to overstage anyone, and I didn't want to do that, but at the same time it's balance between that and making sure that you're not the quiet one, making sure that you're not the one that the audience keeps staring at thinking, when's he gonna say something? So that was something, and also staying in character the whole time, rather than continuing to forget that. But hopefully you heard that in the accent. Even though playing it back, it seems like I do kind of tread a little bit off of the accent, a little bit off of my character's voice, off into my normal voice. But in hindsight, I don't think I ever completely got out of it. I was just I still had a little bit of it left in there. It's just that, interacting live with other people, not knowing what they'd say and not knowing exactly what I'd say to them, it was a little hard to maintain that. But with me continuing to talk about it now, about the idea of breaking character, that is continuing to break the character as we speak by me addressing it. So I need to move on from that. So in regards to our intricate preparations we each did, the way I did it is, as I was watching the documentary, I was taking notes, and I was going to put those notes onto a Word document so that I had something to, so I had a quick reference during the review so I wouldn't forget it, since, I'm not used to doing things without a script. During the Fuleko review, I, memorized the script several times and practiced several times, but in this regard, you can't really practice because you don't know
you don't know where this review is going to go because there's two other people doing it as well, and you don't know what they've got up their sleeves. So what I did is I realized that I didn't have enough time to put the notes onto a Word document, so I was just like, okay, I'm just going to tape the notes onto the screen of my computer, on the monitor of my computer. Just tape the notes so that there they are for me to read. So then there's the question about Top Banana. Who's gonna get it? Well, I feel like I might have been the one that was the most awkward about it, about the whole thing. I was trying not to look awkward. I mean, there were times where I kept trying to stay in character, but sometimes when you try to convey particular emotions, or at least sometimes when I try to do that, I convey particular emotions without saying anything, I come off not the way I intended. So I'm afraid that, looking back, I do look like I'm sort of really awkward and annoyed by the other contestants, and that wasn't what I was trying to convey with that at all. I was trying to convey something particular. I just hope it came off the right way. So I am afraid that maybe because of that, that would cost me a Top Banana and even a little bit more. But other things too that might cost me that. But I do hope that I was able to convey enough. Enough of what I really wanted to say about this and what I really wanted to, let the other two know. And, last time I said it's anyone's Top Banana. This time, I'd say it'd probably likely be the other two. Does that mean I'm scared that I will, be booted out? Well, I always have that fear. Always.
Okay, now I know I lost the last several bets, but that does not mean I'm giving up. This will be the round where he chokes up. All in, all my money.
I bet he'll make it all the way.
Look at that armadillo's poker face.
Okay, hey, that Matt Kid here, answering questions for round 7, which was the panel with Good Plot and Connor. So I guess right off the bat, that was a new experience. We recorded it, and I've seen it, I've watched it once, to kind of look back at it, and boy, that was different, that was new. I don't think it was difficult, though. I don't find it was difficult to review with other people. Maybe it would have been if it was different people, but Connor and Good Plot and I think we gelled pretty nicely. I think we came together fairly well, and were able to review this thing, and I think we all had we played off each other. I think we all had valid points. I think we all had some of the same, some different points. So I really enjoyed the experience. I think an experience like that obviously depends on the people, and I think we got along fine, and I think we did pretty well. As far as prep work goes, I saw the film. I think I saw it twice. I wrote down some names because I'm pretty bad with names. So I had to write down some of the names of people who were interviewed, and like a little blurb about kind of what I thought was the most important that person said. So I would be like Damon Lindelof, Arrow, David Lynch, internet thing about Twin Peaks, or Sean Ryan, and I would be like cable versus network comparison. So that was I did a little bit of that. I looked through I've mentioned this before on the show that I go to school for video and filmmaking, so I looked through both my documentary history textbook and my giant directing the documentary textbook, and I looked through there for maybe some insights, but I didn't find a ton that I thought would be really applicable enough to bring up, other than just standard documentary stuff, which that's something I was kind of hoping to bring to the table here, was my knowledge of, I've made small documentaries before, and I thought there just wasn't a ton for me to comment on because I thought this was fairly typical. It was strong, and I talked about what I didn't like about it and what I did like about it. So, do I think I'll get top banana? I don't know, because the judges said if one person talks more than everyone else, then that person will probably get voted off. Like if they dominate the conversation. I don't think I dominated the conversation, but it's just the kind of person I am where if I sense that there's no it's how I've always been in group projects and stuff. If I sense that no one's stepping up to take the reins and lead, then I will do it. So I felt that it was rough because all three of us were none of us want to dominate the competition or dominate the conversation because of what the judges said. But when you have a panel like this, I feel like it really helps to have one person that's a moderator, because there would be these moments where we would all kind of say our piece and we would just be like, and then I would, someone would have to say, oh, well, what did you guys think of this aspect? And I did that a few times, and I hope I don't get docked for that, but that's just kind of how I am sometimes. And then what else? Some things that I wish could have gone better was, at one point, because I live in a dorm, at one point, an announcement came over the dorm PA system, so that was, caused kind of a break in the flow of conversation. And a couple technical issues with, various people and their mics and stuff, but other than that, I thought it went pretty darn well. So I'm really excited to hear from the other two looking back on this experience. And I liked that we all kind of there was people who liked it, people who kind of liked it, and people who didn't like it at all, between the three of us, and I thought that was cool. That's beside the point. I'm just kind of rambling now. So yeah, that's about all I really have to say, and look forward to hearing the deliberations from this round, and it was really fun working with Connor and Goodplot. You guys rock. And yeah.
So yeah, Connor got top banana this week, 3-2.
Hello, Connor here to answer some Round 7 interview questions. Round 7! Final 3! So the overall experience was interesting. I'm not going to pretend like I haven't done a co-op live stream type video before. My twin brother Spencer and I do this. We used to do it on a weekly basis. We're going to go back to doing it, but we did a CS reviews video podcast sort of thing. It's basically what we do here, and we just talked about a weekly video. So I was kind of familiar with this sort of stuff. But I'd never done it with 3 people, so it was a little weird. But I think overall it was really kind of cool. Matt and Mr. Goodplot are both really cool people. Chatting with them was really neat. I'm kind of glad there was a bit of a divide. They both really liked the movie. I was not so big on it. I thought it was just kind of boring and dull. But I didn't really find it all that difficult overall. What was difficult was the stress of it being live, and you didn't want to say anything stupid. You think of smart things to say when it's all done, despite making notes beforehand. I really would have liked to have said, this movie, I feel like I could have gotten the exact same information if I had just done a Google search on showrunners rather than watching a documentary. But of course, that didn't make it into the video because I thought of it afterwards. What I did for prep was I watched the movie and I did write some notes down. I didn't have them with me when we did the video because I actually did my homework and I watched the Season 1 co-op panel challenge where they reviewed the Green Hornet and Mr. Corellian, Mr. Fusion, and the Evil Professor from Season 1. And then I watched the Deliberations where the judges said that having those notes kind of handicapped Mr. Fusion, Lance, the judge. So I just kind of wanted it. I didn't want any distractions while we were recording. So I just kind of spoke off the top of my head when we were recording. Do I think I'm going to get top banana this round? I have no clue. Honestly, I think I am more in line of getting voted off this round. You see, the thing was, there's that stress of talking too much, but then there's that stress of talking too little. And I tend to dominate conversations I'm usually in, so I was really worried about talking too much. But in hindsight, I think I talked too little. I don't think I said enough. However, I think what I did have to say was important to the conversation at hand. I do feel like, even though I didn't say too much, I feel like what I did say kind of directed the conversation, and my presence was always sort of felt, even though I wasn't really talking. I do feel Matt is probably going to get top banana this round. He managed to talk the most without it feeling like he was dominating the conversation. But I do think, honestly, I'm probably getting voted off this week. Anyway, that's all I really have to say, and I'm crossing my fingers. Hopefully I make it.